Blake, how much of the 1900s do you remember?
Toby, what was it like to ride a dinosaur?
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who was born at the end of the last century, and I'm here with my co-host who was born at the beginning of it, Toby Walters.
It's really funny when my kids ask me, like, what were the 1900s like? And I'm thinking, was it that long ago that we have to refer to it as a different century?
It will make you feel old. It'll age you really fast.
Yeah. So I started mixing audio in, I think, 1992. And Blake, you wouldn't even know what it is. It was a biamp 16-channel, like, analog console. Have you ever heard of biamp?
No, not at all.
I do feel like we've gotten a couple biamp pieces in occasionally. Like there's very few that are still, circulating and being used a lot. But
is that the one that's R2's cousin, or is that C-3PO's cousin?
Sure, Blake. What do they say about, positive comments versus negative comments? How many does it take to balance? Like, how many positive comments does it take to balance out a negative?
I don't know, 1 for 1?
No, I think it's something like at least 6, between 6 to 8 positive comments balance out 1 negative comment. Have you not heard that?
I don't have a sociology degree,
you're such
Toby.
an idiot.
I majored in marketing.
You're great. Does that feel?
And those are the nicest things Toby's ever said to me since I've met him.
So I don't remember a single time when somebody encouraged me outside of like my parents on my audio mixing for, church service or a live event. But I can
pretty bad.
very specifically remember a few moments where it was drastically negative. So I remember I think I was like 15 years old and I was mixing, and it was rehearsal before a Sunday morning. And so I got the mix dialed in where I want. I'm feeling good. And I'm just like I'm tapping my toes and bobbing my head. I'm like, this mix sounds good. And it's a little louder than it would have been for service. It was rehearsal. And all of a sudden I hear just sort of this disruption, like over off to the side in the auditorium. And I look over, and there's an older man in the church who I've known my whole life, and he is screaming at me, and I don't know what he's saying because I can't hear it over the music. So I pull down the master fader a bit, and he's like, "Turn that gosh dang music down!" And he even took off his hat and threw it on the floor. He was so mad.
Are you for real?
I am 100% for real. And then another moment I remember, it was at a live event, and this was just like a kind of a festival style event, and it was outside, and it wasn't a church thing at all. And I was mixing, and I was probably 19 or 20 years old. And again, same deal. Like I thought
same guy?
No, probably not. I had the mix dialed in, and I was just feeling it, tapping my toes, bobbing my head. I was like, I feel good about this mix. And then a guy comes up behind me and taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, "Hey, the bass is ruining your mix." And I'm just like, well, jerk, why don't you hop up here and do it yourself? So I'm sure some of our listeners can relate to some of these moments where they hear negative things about, whether it's audio, video, lighting, and it takes a whole lot of encouragement to balance out the negative.
Maybe the trick is to be really down on yourself, because you were feeling really good on both of those.
Yeah.
I think this is why Stephen Bailey is such a good mixer, because he's so critical of himself.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have just been more pessimistic.
It could be the thing.
Well, bring in some people who are hypercritical of themselves, and that's why they're so good. Jeff Sandstrom and Drew Hester. Guys, welcome to the pod.
Hey, thanks.
What's up?
Do you tap your toes when you're mixing?
Do I tap my toes?
Yeah, do you ever tap your toes? Like Toby was doing.
Oh, no.
See, and that's probably why it's working.
Have either of you ever heard a negative comment about your mix?
Yes.
Yes.
For sure.
Have you ever had any of those moments that just are seared in your memory where it's like, why are you so angry? What else is going on? But
Well, the ones that stick with me are the ones that my wife has made to me.
oh man,
Ooh.
Yeah, that's
Dang.
and I think anytime you have criticism from a source that's emotionally close,
yeah.
it's harder to hear than some random guy throwing his hat at you.
And I'm also guessing your wife knows what she's talking about.
Well, she taught him everything he knows.
Well, that's kind of the thing. It's like she loves music, but she's not a musician. And so when something comes from her, I know that something is really bothersome because she doesn't know She just knows, like she has no idea technically what's going on. But if something is annoying her about my mix, if she brings it up, then I know, okay, I got to pay attention to this.
Yeah.
So
Also, she's your wife, so
Yeah.
she's probably always right.
And she's really pretty.
she's definitely always right.
Yeah.
I think we're going to skip 5 Truths and a Lie this week because I think we're just going straight into the topic for this episode.
And also, we forgot to write them. So
Toby, I was covering for us. Now the boss is going to know.
I'm willing to own up to my mistakes, Blake, like hiring you.
Look, if you just talk really fast, you can get past most of them.
That's true.
Okay, so Toby, do you want to set up the concept of this episode? Because
I want to do it after the first question because
After
the
the
first
first?
question doesn't drum up some controversy between them, but then we'll introduce So I want to talk to you guys about certainly a lot of our listeners will get comment cards, will get comments going through pastoral staff or directly at them of strongly worded suggestions on how they can be better at their craft. How do you guys approach diffusing those or deflecting those, or how do you deal with those comments when they come?
What I've decided recently is that if someone pays enough attention to detail to come back to the booth and talk to me, they should come serve in back of the booth and pay attention to those details.
Yeah.
That's funny. So you can improve it by getting involved.
Yeah.
I like that.
And you got new volunteers.
That's interesting. Mine, I guess it depends. For sure, it depends on the source. But I try to acknowledge the complaint or the comment because I think at the end of the day, there is some truth in what they're saying, even if they don't know what they're actually saying technically. If they take the time and the effort to complain, then there's something in that that's worth paying attention to. So I'm not saying that they're always right. They're probably always wrong. But for me as the mixer, it's like, okay, if they're hearing something, then what is it that they're hearing? And a lot of times I have to take things like age into account. I have to take things like where they're sitting into account. So I'll always ask them, like if they come up in an arena show, for example, and they're talking about not being able to hear clearly, might be a coverage issue for the PA. So where are you sitting? Oh, well, we bought tickets that were right beside the stage so that we could see.
Yeah.
They're actually behind the PA. That's a problem. Things like that. Or if they're up in a back corner, there might be, excessive low-end buildup in that part of the auditorium or something like that, where it's like, okay, well, let's find you another seat or, something like that. But if it's just over, like the bass is way too loud. Okay, well, if they're in their 70s, I know that their high-frequency hearing has degraded over time because that's what happens to humans on this earth. And so if they're not hearing a balanced frequency range, the bass is too loud for them because they can't hear the higher frequency stuff. So, and I'll try to encourage them but if it's a general loudness complaint, then hopefully I'm in an environment like our church, for example, has established a standard for loudness. So if I'm mixing at church and somebody says it's too loud, then I can say, hey, our leadership has decided that this is where we want our level of engagement to be because of the impact and the effectiveness of this volume. And so take it up with them.
Yeah.
And it's usually pretty effective.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, my suggestions have always been like, hey, please go talk to my worship pastor, whoever's been designated as the person to have these conversations.
Yeah.
But some people just need to be heard. So just being a good listener, hey, thank you for talking to me. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. Like, we don't have to get confrontational about it, and we don't have to solve the problem right now. We can usher them to kind of a pathway that we've developed to actually have a real conversation.
Yeah.
Like becoming a volunteer.
It is a conversation, though, because I remember distinctly I was working a small corporate event. It was actually a fundraiser for a ministry. It wasn't a corporate event, but it was a fundraising event for a ministry that had a lot of their major donors at the event. And there was a worship time. And as soon as the band started, a lady ran up to me with her ears covered and says, "Is it supposed to be this loud?" Yes, ma'am, it is. So it's like, sometimes it's a delicate kind of diplomatic balance. But, again, I think operating from, hey, there's probably some truth in their comment, either because of their personal experience in the venue or because of their personal preference that it's important to acknowledge. Whether you change much after that is maybe a different story, but
Do you have a different level of response to it if it's like an outburst like Toby had versus a comment card? Because the outburst, that's emotional, where the comment card, they really thought about it. Does that kind of weigh differently for you?
If it's a comment card in a church that keeps happening, like not the same person, but a complaint that happens over and over again, then I would say it's definitely something to pay attention to, because that could have to be with, the deployment of the PA in your room, or, something that is a tendency in your mix that keeps happening. That's like, okay, if they're complaining because it's too, abrasive, okay, let's look at the EQ in those vocals and let's figure out, is there something that's happening in the upper mid range that's kind of acting like an ice pick to the forehead of some people, and nails on a chalkboard, whatever. It's like, how can we maybe modify some of those things so that it's not as aggressive of a mix?
Yeah, Blake, we did Church Tech Madness during that March Madness timeframe, and we did like the craziest comments ever received. What were a few of the wildest ones?
Why do you only wear all black? Do you work for the devil? These were like user submitted.
Yes.
Why are there demonic triangles in the LED wall? Wow. I mean, it was insane how many we got.
Are there actual symbols that are demonic triangles, and how do they differ from your average isosceles?
I mean, is it...
He just pulled that back from high school. That's incredible.
What's the Illuminati signals that people were saying Jay-Z and
the
Beyonce were
all,
doing all that stuff?
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
There was a lot of Turn It Down. I'm trying to remember now. I want to say the final four, 3 of the final 4 were some variation, a creative variation of Turn It Down.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people who love to tell you that they know the pastor, so you better turn it down.
Well, there's a lot of people now who have an Apple Watch that's telling them to turn it down, and that's an issue as well.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think, and I love mixing loud. Like, I think, generally, just the physics of it, like things sound better when they're louder. So, I'm not saying this because I don't like loud music, because I mix pretty loud myself, but I think there are times when we do need to turn it down. It's like, I think style and preference might be changing a little bit. And I think, the sort of mixing at 102A weighted just because is probably going to just yield to, hey, you know what? Maybe 93, 94, 95 is about as loud as we need to be in a church.
Yeah.
But,
Jeff, something you've said before and said multiple times when I've been around is you like to, while you're mixing, look around the room and see how the congregation or audience at a concert is actually responding to the mix. And I feel like that's such a good indicator to actually look around and there's a row of babies over here. I mean, my perspective shifted when I became a dad and my wife brought our newborn to church, and I was like, wait a minute. I've been selfish. And so I think part of the conversation is who are you mixing for?
Yeah.
And you're getting ahead of us on this outline. So I'm going to pull you back, and we're going to set up the episode now. So I pitched this idea to Blake a while ago, and it took a long time to actually get him to understand what I was talking about. Because, look at that head. It's pretty dense.
The process is, your idea is terrible. And a lot of times it is. But then there's a lot of times where I come back and I'm like, that was a good one, Toby. Let's do it.
So I thought, what if we brought on 2 guests that are really great at their craft and we're not really trying to dig up controversy. We're trying to have a good time, but let's compare notes on their, preferences and their opinions on their craft.
Little cage match.
And yeah.
We got the boxing gloves in the back.
Yeah. Unfortunately we started with the 2 nicest guys we could find in the church production space.
We're easing in.
So it's let's get Gandhi and Mother Teresa together and watch them argue. I'm hoping you guys can play it up a little bit.
Yeah, you picked 2 guys that basically have mixed on the same consoles too, so there's not even controversy there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with something you
win.
might disagree on.
I agree.
Oh, we should award points as we go.
Oh, we should. So you're the scorekeeper, Blake.
Okay.
The points are as,
Arbitrary.
relevant to real life as Shroot Bucks.
There we go.
So,
the points don't matter.
yeah, the points don't matter, but they do.
But there is a winner.
Yes.
It's America.
Yeah. Okay, so monitors versus front of house.
Oh boy.
Where does the skill set differ, and which one is better? Fight!
And do you even need them?
Yeah.
You definitely need front of house.
He already did it. He's already won.
Better is a really slippery term, but I would say it's just such a different skill set in so many ways. But I think monitors, you definitely need to be as much of a therapist as you need to be an engineer, because the emotional support required to keep 8 people on stage happy is a massive factor. Front of house, I need to keep myself happy and make sure the crowd's engaged. But monitors, I mean, those guys are definitely, psychology plays a big part in what they're having to do.
Yeah.
Are you having to look at their face to see, like, are they liking it or not? Okay.
And the best monitor engineers actually know what to do before anybody asks for something.
Correct.
Like I remember Kyle McMahon, who now works for Digico. He was Tomlin's monitor engineer for 10 years. And he could basically, he would solo everybody's mix and make changes before they even knew that they were going to ask for it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they would look over and go,
Oh yeah.
okay. Like it's just, it's a very nuanced.
And is
pursuit.
Chris going to get more upset if the house isn't right or if his ears aren't right?
He'll definitely get more upset in the moment if his ears aren't right, but generally speaking, he wants the house to be right.
Yeah.
Like he would much rather tolerate a bad in-ear mix than a bad audience experience.
There's this reality too, though, when you think about it, though. We always talk about get it right at the source. And if the source can't hear themselves, then it's not going to sound good in front of house
yeah.
either. So it's really, it's a team effort, you know, like to get a good quality source all the way down the line.
Yeah.
You have to work together. And I mean, I personally lean towards the monitor engineer just because that's how I'm wired. Like I'm a musician. I like to bounce around in those different mixes and make those adjustments. And actually, I don't want to say it's more relational than front of house, because at the end of the day, front of house is working with a really large group of people. But
Yeah.
I like that like team mentality of like
Yeah.
I'm kind of part of the band.
And I would say too that the monitor engineer, in most cases, has to be more technically proficient, because they're handling not only, you know, a different sort of, it's a layer of the console and all of its capabilities that might be different than what the front house engineer is doing. Plus, they've got to deal with RF and typically, you know, tuning packs, tuning mics, making sure that all that is stable. Like creating a stable infrastructure in the RF environment is typically, in a bigger deployment, for sure more of the monitor engineer's role than the front of house engineer role. So, you know, RF dropouts, obviously they impact front of house, but it's kind of the responsibility of the guy side stage to make sure that that is as stable as possible.
So if you have an audio dummy, let's call him, I don't know, Blake,
Yeah.
and you have to teach him either front of house or monitors, which one's going to be easier?
Truck driver.
Truck driver. Yep.
Hey, the truck drivers on the Taylor Swift tour got a nice bonus.
We've
so
got a
I'm
nice
thinking about it.
case that you can push from the door all the way up to front of house.
He
I
would
bet I
still
could
screw it up.
I bet I could ride that case down the hill when we're loading out.
Well, somebody in a case that was here at MXU yesterday kind of kicked it and damaged their foot. Was that you or Blake?
That was me. So
wasn't me.
Toby's
Yeah,
in
go
flip flops, and Jeff is like, I said, "What's wrong with this picture with your shirt off?" And Jeff says, "Toby's wearing flip flops." To which I said, "Yeah, I slammed my foot into our SD9. It was not good."
That's why we have a closed-toed shoe policy here at MXU. I'm just kidding.
We do at Church Gear. I just own the company, so I get
You
to
can do
avoid
whatever
the
you
policies.
want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
So to summarize the point, front of house is better, but monitors are smarter.
Hang on, yeah. Did we get a final decision from each of you?
Friends don't let friends make monitors, so that's always what I've been told.
Yeah,
and I
that's-
don't have any friends.
I had
so.
that bumper sticker once. You know, there's nothing. I'll tell people all the time, like if they say, "Hey, what's a great way to get in the industry, like touring?" Become a great monitor engineer, because that is job security for sure. You're not going to get any accolades. You're not going to probably get, you know, people coming up and telling you how great of a job you did from front of house, because you're not at front of house. But man, if you like, some of the best people I know are the best qualified monitor engineers. You don't want me in that role. I'd much rather be at front of house, but I think, you know, all due respect to good monitor engineers.
You know, there was a time where I was mixing monitors and you were at front of house. You want to tell them how bad I did?
I don't know if I remember that.
We were
Was
at
that at
Liberty.
a-
It was at Liberty.
Was it a
We did
convocation?
No, we did an event, training event. He doesn't remember, so
It was so
It must
bad.
have
he
been
had to
so
block
bad.
it
No,
out from
I
his
do
memory.
remember that. Yeah, it was for it was like 4 years ago.
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I think you did great.
There you go. All I would
All
say
right,
is
point to Drew. Jeff gave it to him. So it's 1-0
he
right
said
now.
it, not me. But I would ask a front of house engineer if he wants to mix monitors from front of house, and then it's like, oh no, we love monitor engineers. Oh, we gotta have monitor engineers. So
All right, let's get back to some real controversy. So, death by audio gear. That's what we're setting up. If
Okay.
you had to pick one piece of audio gear to fight to the death in a gladiator-style cage match,
Like to use as a weapon?
yes,
Or to fight for?
no, to use as a weapon, what are
Okay.
you going to pick?
I love the thought that he was like, there's a piece of gear I love so much I'd fight for it. So if you want to tell us that one, you should throw that in
let's
there.
answer the first question. So my brain goes to two places. What can I get around quickly with in case I need to run away?
And you have to
Or-
like be able to wield it.
Right, like I can actually physically move it around, but also is strong enough and powerful enough to, I guess, inflict harm. And I feel like a power amp would be something I could probably lift.
Which one, though?
I don't know.
Because
which
the
one,
weights
but
on that vary a lot.
yeah, but they're like 40, 50 pounds sometimes. So it's like picking that thing up and, smacking it across someone's face. I feel like that would be
You can go crown 4,000.
semi-effective.
Mine would be an SM57 with a cable attached.
Ooh,
It's pretty good.
that's actually pretty good.
Because
choke?
no, not
No,
to choke
like
with the cable. I'm
whip
saying
'em.
with the microphone. You can use it as a and bonk them over the head.
Yeah.
And then the mic won't be damaged, so you could still use it for your show.
That's a
pretty
good
good.
point.
That's pretty
Because you
good.
can't break it.
Right.
I don't know if it's audio equipment. I would take a round-based microphone stand. And you swing that around. Like, is that audio?
If we were including like truss and stands and stuff,
Yeah.
I would totally grab like a piece of pipe or something and whack someone.
Ungrounded feeder.
Sure.
Just zap
Yeah,
them with
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Blake, I feel like we have to give the point to Jeff because Drew's never going to get close enough to hit him with a power amp because he can have a 25-foot cable and
Yeah.
whip him with
true.
the
That's
SM57.
Very
All right, it's
Blake,
1-1.
what would you use?
Jeff kind of took my logic. I was going to say Alico because you could still use it after.
Audio equipment, Blake.
It has to, I thought, well, darn.
It says
He doesn't-
equipment right there.
He doesn't know that
I know.
Alico is
It's
not
unfortunate.
audio.
Yeah.
But you also wrote the outline.
I thought I was going to get to do AVL.
It does make sound, though, when you bowl with it.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking you could use it to defend pretty well. You just need one good hit, and you could use it for the show right after.
Yeah. And we have a ton of them at Church Gear, so.
Well, this turned into an ad. All right.
And
keep
I
on.
forgot to mention that whoever wins the most points gets the other one's company. So, we'll make sure that it's very fair on the point distribution system.
I didn't know you owned
I
church
didn't know
gear.
I owned a company, so that's news to me. I don't care if I win or lose at this point. I own a company.
Toby's joked a lot. He'd sell church gear for 3 magic beans. So here we are.
It just depends on how many government forms I'm filling out that day. That's the marker.
Yeah,
Because
that's
that's the
funny.
least fun part of owning a business.
All right, Toby, hit him with the next one.
Okay, so if we had a mix-off between you guys right now, what console would you use? And you can pick all time, and we're going to give you just different scenarios. So if it was just a typical 4-piece worship band, what console would you use today?
Hold on. Let's just draw on the fact that Jeff could be mixing on a 4-channel Mackie, and his mix would sound better than mine.
Stop sandbagging, Drew.
I know.
Come
Let's
on.
just
Hey,
be real.
Mother Teresa, let's bring the humility up a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
Man, that's a good question. In terms of just familiarity and workflow and all that, I'm always going to come down to the two that I use most often nowadays. So I would say, first would be a Digico Quantum 338 for most applications, like
Okay.
no matter what genre or size of the band.
Yep. Drew, what are you going with?
Unfortunately, he stole my answer. So
Oh,
I
just
think-
riding Jeff's coattails again.
All right,
I
so
see.
point Jeff. He stole the answer.
And then I would also choose LV1.
Yeah, it would be a Digico console, SD series, Quantum series.
Okay.
Out of familiarity. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy 4-piece band.
Back in the day, though, 15 years ago, I would have said Avid Profile.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so what if, and your answer may be the same, what if it's a festival-style gig with a dozen bands?
And you have someone like yelling at you, complaining most of the time.
Well, when you think festival, it's speed. You got to be able to move quickly. So again, you have to know the console well. So it unfortunately just puts me back into the same answer.
Yeah, but and I would say, back in the day, when I hearken back to that 15 years ago situation, every festival had Avid Profile because the show files were so easy to load, the just portability of preferences and all those things. It was automatic. Patch Bay, all the ways that it worked, it was designed for speed, and it was so intuitive that anybody could walk up to it and have a decent experience. So, and everybody had a show file for it. So if you walked up, even if you weren't using that desk on a regular basis, everybody had a file. So if you were at a festival, you just throw and go, and it would get you there faster, in my mind, faster than any other. Back then, it was like either an Avid Profile or Yamaha PM5D. And
that was my first console.
Yeah.
All right, Toby, if you want some controversy, flip it. What would be the console if you showed up and you didn't get to bring one that you're horrified, like this is the one that you have to mix with?
It's good.
That's
For
a
a
good
festival
question.
style.
For a festival
dozen
style?
brands.
You show
Yeah.
up and you're like, oh no, this is what they have.
Anything analog?
Yes and no. So my mind goes to an SSL console because there's a lot of customization you have to do just to get audio in and out of the desk. And so I would be like, well, there's no time for this. So I'd be stressing out.
Yeah. That would stress me out too. Same answer. It sounds great.
Great desk.
Awesome desk, but difficult to walk up to cold and start from scratch.
I've always said that if I had to walk into a venue with no show file loaded,
Wait, no.
is that a question?
Yes.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Don't get
Drew,
ahead of
they
us.
both said SSL, but Drew said it first. So point
Okay,
Drew. So
point
2-2.
All right. You're touring the next 6 months, and it's all outdoor, and the weather's going to be different.
You have to wear shorts and flip-flops.
Are we assuming like we're worried about weather? Is that why we're saying outdoor?
Sure.
Like wear and tear?
Jeff's had some outdoor weather mixing catastrophes.
Well, if it's bad weather every day, the show's going to get
gonna get
canceled. So that's
canceled.
not fair.
Yeah.
Stop using logic.
Problem with the question,
That's
Toby.
why is the question geared towards what console is
Yeah, the
more
most
robust,
durable in all environments.
Oh,
I've used an M7 after it had a bath before. So
For real?
Did you give it a bath? Was it romantic?
like it was outdoors. It got rained on.
Was it on?
Dried off. Like,
it's
turn
funny
it
when you
off.
mentioned the bad weather thing. My Uganda story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was an M7,
Yep.
Yeah.
but I
I mean, those things are
digress.
tanks.
I don't know, man. Even though it seems more fragile, I would say for size and portability and just able to travel, take it on a plane, take it on a bus, take it, in a car, LV1.
When you think about outdoors too, it's like, can I see the screen?
Yeah.
Do you need a console that has a brighter screen? And there are notable like consoles that we all know that don't have bright screens. And that's one of the advantages of the Quantum now is like the screen's brighter. It's much easier to use. The angle's better.
Yeah.
I'm sure with LV1, it's like you're controlling your own screen brightness
Yeah.
anyway.
But I would, yeah.
Is an LV1 a Digico? What's the
No, it's
what
Wave-
brand?
Waves.
Okay.
yeah,
You're so cute, Blake.
I didn't know Waves had
that
consoles.
was cute.
I think we got to give that point to Drew just because we sell more M7s than LV1s. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's
Unfair.
not self-serving at all.
3-2. I don't know
not
how I
rigged, I
feel about
promise.
that,
Yeah.
but
Okay, here's a good one. You have 5 minutes to sound check, and you do not have a show file.
Analog.
Yeah.
whoa.
Is that an option?
Sure.
Yeah. Analog if it's an option. If it's not, I want a CL5 because I can get to something. There's literally channels already labeled. It says channel 1, but I can push it up. Everything's already routed to the stereo. I don't have to worry about grouping. Just go.
Part of that's my age, part of it's experience, but I've said for years I would love to take a group of kids today and put them in front of an analog desk with a 56 channel analog snake and say sound check starts in 20 minutes, go, and see what and I'd even give them 4 compressors and 4 gates that they can use as inserts.
Yeah.
But to go to, because I don't think a lot of young people today can survive without their jump drive with the show file. In other words, I want to be surrounded by people who understand signal flow, understand gain structure, understand how this stuff is supposed to work. And I think the best way to do that is with a bunch of copper and an analog desk.
I think this could be a good bit where we give Blake 6 months training on an analog desk and then bring in young guys that have only mixed digital and see who figures it out faster.
Toby, we could run this in heaven and give me unlimited time. It still's not going to work. Unlimited time.
I'm fortunate enough to be at an age where I did start on an analog console. And so like the foundation for me has always been thinking through analog.
Yeah.
And there were definitely events at church where it was like, you have 10 minutes and we're starting, like whether it was a youth event or whatever, something that's not really, a lot of effort was put into. And it's like, well, here's 40 channels, let's go. And those are the moments that I reflect on when you get to a digital console and you're trying to either teach that or maybe have 20 minutes, whatever it is. Like it's that signal flow and understanding that I've always leaned on that. And so I think, you guys probably feel like this at MXU too, but teaching on analog almost to a basic audio engineer who hasn't learned anything yet almost feels more natural to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
All right, we're going to give that point to Jeff because I feel like Jeff has actually mixed on a lot more analog consoles than Drew.
And I said
Easily.
it first.
He said it
3-3.
first.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do prioritize the first.
Yep. Drew, do you feel like if we gave you a 338 and we gave Jeff an Aviom A16 that you could then beat Jeff in a mix-off?
That's a really fun idea.
Where's
gonna
the
give Toby a
signal-
point.
Where's
You're
the
giving
signal
me-
coming on from his...
How am I getting anything on
It's a mixer. Come on.
It's a leveler. I'm just managing levels at that point. I have no control over tonality at all.
Whose mix is feeding the Aviom? That's the question. Because that's what
Hopefully
determines
not
it.
Drew's.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Okay, so we have a final opportunity to win a point.
Oh, it's 3-3.
It's 3-3. So whoever wins this one
Best of
wins the other
7.
company. Yeah. Best mixing related disaster story.
Okay, I've got one.
Okay, Drew, you can go first. It doesn't matter who goes
You can go.
first.
You want to go?
After you.
Are we going to skip the electricity question?
Oh, okay. Rewind real quick.
Okay.
What?
We can't end 4-4 though. You have to come up with a tiebreaker.
We could do a tech takeaway, and whoever has the best tech takeaway could get a point.
That's true.
That's not the game.
Okay, we'll do this outside of a point system. This is just one for free.
I'm pretty competitive, by the way.
I love it.
What console do you take if electricity is gonna be sketchy?
They all use electricity, so I don't understand how it...
There's no wireless power option. So
Am I worried about the cost of the console and if it's going to work the next day?
I figure, does
I would
does
take one with a redundant power supply at least, so that if electricity is sketchy, there's at least some sort of backup.
Some failover.
is it going to make a difference to get it back up and running depending on which
It's
console?
actually true. Some consoles do boot up faster than others. Like if the electricity, if you lose power.
Analog boots up immediately.
Analog,
sure.
yeah, analog.
Okay.
I don't want to steal
Toby, I'm going to say that you actually lose a point for you because that question didn't really work. So it's
Like
still
you lose 10 points for your face. How about that?
that's fine. I'm still getting that check still clears. All right, 3-3, negative
He's trying
1.
to lose 10 pounds, not
I
10
know.
points.
We're running out of time.
How's
It's
that
always
going, Blake?
it's always those last 3 pounds.
Yeah.
Yep.
You,
And
you keep eating salads and then you keep drinking cocktails.
I keep wondering if that will work, but it doesn't. And it's always those last 3 pounds until you slide a 0 behind that 3. Then it gets dangerous. Okay, last question.
Yeah.
All the marbles.
So back to the best
Horror
mixing
story.
related disaster story.
I may or may not have already told this on our podcast, but I'll just do it again anyway because it's kind of like the most embarrassing moment of my career, even though no one actually found out about it. But I'm mixing monitors for a festival-style event. So there's about 16 different bands performing, and it's one right after the other. Now, they've all sound-checked, so it's a little different in a festival in that we actually get a full sound check for each band. We get time to actually dial things in. We're not running and gunning the whole time. So there's days of preparation that have gone into this event. And I guess just for clarification, I was at Liberty, and this was a Christmas event
Name
that the
dropper.
students put on. Chris Tomlin.
I didn't say it.
I almost
We
want
all
to
know it.
I almost
We
want
all
to
know
give
it.
Jeff a point for the joke.
Okay, all right. I'll finish the story. So I think I'm on an SD10, and Digico has snapshots to which I was using to store mix presets for each aux. So that as I went from band to band, I could change IEM auxes, wedge auxes, just to make sure that everyone has the right mix. And the way Digico customizes things in a snapshot, you can choose to recall something or not recall something, even if you store that snapshot. So we get through sound check, every band is ready to go, and the event starts. Group 1 gets up, I fire that snapshot, good to go, no problem. Transition happens, the next band comes up, and I fire my next snapshot. Nothing changes.
Ugh.
A little bit of a panic mode, but I'm like, okay, I'll just manually adjust. I know there's a bass player at this spot. There's an acoustic guitar there. Make sure he can hear himself. Like that was kind of the philosophy. Just get something in the wedges, in the ears, so that people can actually hear. Next band comes up. Fire my next snapshot. Again, nothing. And I'm like, okay, I have a problem. It wasn't just this one snapshot. I have a real problem. So I'm firing all my snapshots during the transition. Nothing's changed.
Should have worn my brown pants.
Yeah. So I am in some ways panicking a little bit because I'm like, okay, these people aren't going to be able to hear themselves at all. They're in an arena, and it's going to be really hard to stay in time. So I've got to figure this out right now. So I called for help. My production manager came over, and we are both, as I'm pushing up mixes for the current band, looking at settings. What did I miss? How did I miss this? Because I've even run through snapshots before the show, and they worked. It's like, what did I do? What did I mess up? Is the console not working correctly? And so we're just trying to figure it out. We're through every menu on the snapshot. This one's checked. This one's checked. This one's checked. We're good. It should be working. Let's reboot the console. So during a transition, we rebooted the console, which that's like a poop you know.
Clench your cheeks.
Yeah, clench your cheeks.
together.
I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That's a tough moment. So we got it booted up in time for the next band. Again, fired snapshot. Still nothing. Well, it's not that. So we actually get through the whole event, and we moved our mindset from let's fix it to let's make sure the mixes are just right for each band. So as they're walking up on stage, I am pushing up faders, just making sure people have a baseline mix for everyone. And we got through the show, and most people didn't know, and it was fine. But I knew, and my team knew.
And now all our
pretty,
listeners
and now
know.
all your listeners know. But the solution to the problem was I didn't expand the aux menu. So the global setting to recall all the aux mixes was checked. But each individual aux was unchecked.
Ugh. Does it default to that?
I don't know. I don't know how we got there, but that's what happened.
Wow.
See, all Digico-related disasters, I just blame on Ryan Shelton. Because, he's the sweetest guy. So I'm like, it's Ryan's fault.
Sure.
Wow. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's
How do you follow that, Jeff?
Well, let's see. 2009, which is a lot longer ago than it feels like it should be.
Yeah,
by
unfortunately.
The way. Yeah. Chris Tomlin's Hello Love Tour.
Name dropper.
There it is.
Just following suit. Yeah. So we were that particular tour was actually we had a partnership with Yamaha, and so we had Nexo PA and Yamaha consoles. So we had a PM5D at monitors in front of house, and we were in Pennsylvania, and it was a spring tour, so it was early spring, so it was February. And we get through sound check, everything's fine, and we're just like, okay, doors are open, we're good to go. All of a sudden, it's like doors have been open long enough for me to have made my way to front of house for the show. So it was like we're like less than 10 minutes from downbeat. And all of a sudden my console just goes done. Like console not passing anything. And power's okay, we're double checking stuff, but it's like we don't have anything at front of house. So what are we going to do? Well, start calling around to the house folks, and they were like, well, there's a rental company on the other side of town, but it's snowing outside, and they probably can't get here for another hour. Like, okay, well, that's not going to work. I mean, it's literally time to start the show.
Yeah.
So we happened to be, we were in State College, so we were like near the campus of Penn State. It was either Harrisburg or somewhere in central Pennsylvania. So on campus in the music school at Penn State, they had a PM1D. And so
That's a big
huge
console.
huge console.
He lifted it by himself.
So we were like, okay, let's get it over here. And so, but I had no show file for a PM1D, had no whatever. So somebody took a box truck or a cargo van, whatever, over to the music school. They unplugged it all, put it in the van, brought it over here. So we had it was basically like all hands on deck, plugging in this 56 channel snake into the splitter, getting undoing the connector for the 5D, getting the 1D plugged in. And it was literally like, okay, like as if it were an analog desk. It's like I knew my inputs, so it was like just dial in something. And we were about, I think we started the show probably, I don't know, 30 minutes late. I mean, we did it fast.
Wow.
That's really quick.
And it was one of those moments though where it was like, I have no idea how this is going to sound. I mean, no sound check at that point. It was just set your gains and a few things that you need to do, and let's see what happens. So by the third song or so, I felt like, okay, I can breathe.
Yeah.
But it was one of those where it was, and that the PM5D that died, turns out the whole master section motherboard was fried. And so that console ended up in the back lounge of the bus with our tech from Spectrum just trying to figure all that out, because we had a show the next day. So it was like, what are we going to be able to get to be able to get this thing up and running for tomorrow? Because we had to leave the PM1D with the good folks at Penn State.
Yeah.
So go Nittany Lions. But they saved the day for sure.
Imagine being the guy that was going to get on that console on Monday and was like, why did all my stuff get unplugged when they returned it?
And did you have your brown pants that night?
Probably not.
No.
As far as I can remember, they were,
So you sat down for that show.
man,
Yeah.
it was rough.
Well, what do you think, Blake?
Don't outsource this one to me because I think it's actually really close.
I just want to be,
And kind of a similar problem.
make sure that we're
Can we
not...
tell another story?
Do you have another?
I love making
Tiebreaker?
fun of myself, right?
Okay.
That's what we do here.
Hit us.
Okay, this one's really quick. So church is about to start. I'm on a CL5, and we got iPod music playing, and that's the only fader that's even close to me. And I trip. I literally, I'm in the booth and I trip. I don't know what I was doing. I mean, I was younger. Maybe I was doing something.
Just pacing.
Really dumb. Pacing, yeah. Like I'm really nervous about this or something. I don't know. But I fell, and I just reacted, right, to catch myself. Well, I caught myself on the iPod input fader
Leaning forward.
going up.
Ugh.
And
How loud did it get, Drew?
it got real loud for like half a second before I could pull it back. But everyone in the room, people were coming to sit down in church. There's some nice ladies in front of me who are already a little hard of hearing that gave me a nice stare. And
13 Karens died.
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, mine is similar, but it's not about myself. So we can call this a tie if we need to. But again, PM5D, great console. I was with, I don't need to name drop anymore. I was at a conference with a well-known gospel artist, and
Iron Maiden.
yes, yeah, exactly. And we weren't carrying a monitor engineer on this run, so it was just me and the band. And then the conference audio company was providing the monitor engineer. And so we're at sound check, getting everything dialed in. I had a show file for my side, and so he was building mixes and stuff and getting going. So the artist comes on stage, and his in-ear mix preferences were very interesting. He wanted the click in his mix panned all the way to the left, and his acoustic panned all the way to the right. So on the PM5D, the encoder can be several different things. It can be a pan knob. It can be, various other. One of the things it can be is a gain knob. And so the artist says, just go ahead and pan my acoustic all the way to the right.
Ooh.
So this kid who's at the monitor desk just gets his shoulder into it, and it's set to gain.
Mm-hmm.
And so he takes one strum of the acoustic, freaks out, pulls his ears out, throws them on the stage, breaks them, walks off the stage.
Didn't do the show?
Did the show, but didn't do a sound check. So I didn't hear a note that he played or a word that he sang.
Yeah.
Luckily, he's the ultimate pro.
Yeah.
But he can be kind of temperamental too. So it was just one of those moments where it was like, okay, we're going to hope he calms down a little bit and hasn't lost his hearing
Yeah.
before our set. But this is going to be interesting. So he had a spare pair of ears, which was good, and came out and did the show, and it was great. But man, that monitor engineer was feeling it
Yeah.
from all sides that day.
So you didn't turn that up, the monitor engineer did.
I did not turn it up.
Yeah. So obviously front of house is better than monitors.
100%.
Here,
Yeah.
Oh, I have a counter story to just for
Oh,
that.
wow. They're going for it.
We finally got the controversy.
Do we have time?
We're pacing good. Let's cut the tech takeaway.
Great.
We're doing it live.
Use the mic, Drew.
Oh, so I'm actually telling the story
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
I was mixing for Chris Tomlin in this instance. So if we're gonna keep name dropping.
Oh, for a second.
there's just one name
I
we keep
thought he
dropping.
meant he was that monitor engineer. Okay.
No.
No, he was not.
So Chris visited Liberty, and so I'm mixing monitors as the house tech, and I will not name this front of house engineer because he's a friend. Don't want to do
Wasn't
that. It was not Jeff. We will clarify it was not Jeff.
Was it Ryan
Two
Robb?
house techs. No, it was not. And so Chris has this moment where he's going to play an older acoustic guitar that's really valuable to him, but there's no input. Not input.
Pickup.
Pickup.
There's no
It's
pickup.
been a day. There's no pickup in the guitar, so we're miking it, and we spend a few minutes talking about mic selection and what he's going for and how he wants to do it. We get it all set up, and then getting wedges dialed in because he's not wearing ears for this event, and there's feedback. There's consistent feedback, and he keeps looking at me like, "Come on, like EQ this thing, whatever you need to do. Like, you guys should be pros at this, right?" And I'm sitting here going the whole time, I'm like, I haven't even turned this up in the wedges yet. It's not there yet. I know I'm not the feedback problem. It's front of house. So front of house got me in trouble.
Ooh.
Why'd you do
under
that,
the bus.
Jeff?
I wasn't there. That was not me.
Toby, I'm going to give you my rationale, but not who I think should win.
Okay.
To see if you respond to it the same way
Great.
I do. Okay, so the point goes to the best disaster story.
Yeah.
So Drew had two stories. He had one where nobody got their in-ear mix right. He was kind of doing it manual. And then his second one was he shot that knob up and made some crazy loud sounds.
Yep.
On Jeff's, their console died, but they found another one.
Mm-hmm.
And on Jeff's, they destroyed that guy's ears, but he wasn't the one that pressed it. So when you hear that, who do you think gets the point?
I mean, I'm just trying to not have,
Enemies?
Yeah, so I'll just give it to Drew because
He works for you?
He's got the shirt.
he is closest to me.
Here's the problem. In all reality, I think this rationale works. You saved your disaster. You got the console. If you hadn't got the console, I think you get the point.
But shouldn't there be credit for saving the disaster?
That's what I'm saying. I think Jeff was too competent. It's not a disaster if you save the show.
Although I do feel like Drew should lose a point for tripping at front of house.
Yeah, I feel like I might be the only one who's ever done that. Hey, I'm honest.
There's tons of stuff to trip over.
Blake, you would trip at front of house. That's why. That's
I have
one of the
watched-
many reasons we never let you in front of house.
We should have said this at the beginning. We're filming at MXU HQ, and we've been filming videos here, and I have seen Marcus nearly die 4 times from there's tons of stuff to trip over.
There's stuff in the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's cords everywhere.
But did he? And
No.
who hurt themselves on an SD9?
Of course I hurt myself.
Yeah.
All
exactly.
right. Well, Jeff, I know you're competitive. Sadly, you were too competent. So I think Drew's our winner here.
It's okay.
We started the episode saying that Jeff was going to win because he's just.
And I really
Jeff.
believed that too.
But you came in clutch, Drew. You won.
You have more disastrous moments than I do.
Yeah.
But the point is that you're the winner in that scenario either
So
way.
you now own MXU. How does it feel?
What's the
Wait-
first thing
wait
you're
a-
going to do?
Wait a minute.
The first thing I'm going to do is give MXU back to Jeff
Ah.
because I already
Oh,
really
so
appreciate
generous.
Jeff. So
See, that's what you get for having a couple of nice guys
I
on
know.
the podcast.
Gosh. These nice guys. Maybe we can find some mean guys. If there are some mean listeners out there that want to argue over helpful, AVL tips for the church. Yeah.
A couple names come to mind, and I'm not going to say them so we don't get canceled.
Speaking of mean, can I tell one little story?
Yes.
This is, I just think it's funny. This is a long time ago. Catalyst Conference in Atlanta, way back in the day. Andy Stanley's on stage doing his mic check. And front of house engineer is struggling. Just a headset mic in an arena is sometimes difficult to get dialed in without feedback. And we didn't have the tools then that we have now in terms of feedback suppression type things. So he's using EQ and he's trying to hack away at it. And Andy he's a musician. He understands tonality and frequencies and all this stuff. And so he's on stage, check 1 2, check 1 2. He starts going through his notes a little bit, reading the Bible verse, check 1 2, and it's not relenting. It's just still little feedback, little feedback, little feedback. So finally Andy stops and he goes, "Who's back there mixing?" And the guy behind him says, "That's Stephen Bailey." Andy goes, "Oh, that explains it."
Poor Bailey.
Brutal.
Sorry, Stephen. It's
Yeah.
been a long time ago, but I just think I was standing next to Stephen and I was just like, "Oh, bro, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Andy, though, also has an extremely dry sense of humor and is pretty hilarious, actually. And so I know that it was
In jest.
in jest, good-hearted. But
Yeah.
if you're an usher in the arena
Yeah.
and you hear somebody get called out like that, might not go over the same way.
Yeah.
But
Right.
anyway, love Stephen, love Andy.
Oh man.
It's like that podcast got us into hot water. Well, who was the host? Blake Hodges. Oh, well,
that
explains
explains it.
Explains
Yeah.
everything.
That
Yep.
does. You guys got anything you want to plug before we sign off here?
I think it's great. If you're a production leader, production volunteer, anything having to do with production, and you need to understand more of the heart behind what we do and why that's important, then get Drew's book because it's great.
Thank you. And if you need training on anything related to worship production, you should check out getmxu.com.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to lunch.
Where are we going? Do we want to plug our favorite restaurants? Because now we're going to lunch. Blake, if you could eat anywhere on the planet for lunch, where would you go?
I think I would just eat white cheddar popcorn out of my kitchen cabinet.
Yeah.
Truly, honestly.
And there's some fantastic tacos in this world, and I would just pick and choose one from each of my favorites, and it would just be heavenly.
All right, let's do it. Well, thank you for listening and join us with our recording at MXU HQ.
And sorry about Blake.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.